Yeah, no worries.
And I've got a room full of seniors here with me for the class of 2022 at Velma Jackson. And we're recording this for our whole senior class at Velma Jackson, class of 2022. Just a few weeks away from graduating. And we're also recording this for our YouTube channel. We're joined by my wonderful high school classmate, Michelle Dugan, Madison Central class of 2000. It's like, I know you spoke with our business law bunch a few weeks ago, and we talked about, the importance of knowing the steps to getting a mortgage, how to prepare for it, buying business, buying land, buying a home, why you would be the first step before you ever get to the realtor or the looking or any of that. So we'll get into all that and what you do over at Mississippi Lending. But why don't you start by telling us a little bit about your background and how you got into this, because you did not have a regular path. And we have several of our kids about to do similar paths, college, junior college, military workforce. So, and I know you did not do a traditional path, and now you're doing some great stuff. So why don't you tell us a little bit about that and how you got all into this, and then we'll talk about some mortgages.
Sure. So I was like most college students. I thought from the age of about 5 that I knew exactly what I wanted to do in life and where I was going and what that path was going to look like. And then life happened, and that is not exactly how everything played out. So I started out and initially went to a community college for 2 years. And then after going to community college, I transferred over to Mississippi College, where I was going to complete my bachelor's degree. I had intentions of majoring in political science and then going on to law school. So while I was going to community college and then also finishing up my bachelor's at Mississippi College, I was working as a paralegal at a law firm just after school, and I took as many night classes as I could so that I could work and go to school at the same time. And during that time, I transitioned from just answering the phones at the law firm I moved up to where I was handling all of their real estate, the majority of their real estate division when it came to home closings and purchasing real estate, selling real estate, refinancing. And I really liked what I was doing. And I had decided by this time that once I went to law school, I wanted to be a real estate attorney, and that's what I was going to do. And that was my path. Well, right after I got accepted to law school, I also literally at the very same time found out that I was expecting my first son. So I decided that maybe it wouldn't be the best idea to have a baby and try to go to law school and try to work to afford this new baby. And I decided to defer for my first year of law school. And just after that, I got approached by one of the guys that I was doing a lot of loan closings for at the law firm. And he said, "Hey, why don't you just get your mortgage license, because you're sending me a bunch of business and, you can make a commission on these sales." And I was like, well, why would I want to do that? I don't really understand how that works. And he was very, very persistent, which is why he's such a great salesperson to this day. But he convinced me to get my license. So I filled out all the paperwork and I went forward with that. And the next thing I knew, I was making more at my part-time job, doing mortgage loans than I was at my primary job at the law firm. So I decided literally that right when my son was born, I decided that I was going to leave the law firm and I was just going to get into mortgages full time. I would do that for a year and then I would go to law school. Well, once I started doing mortgages, I decided, you know what, this is actually pretty fun. I really like this job. It's challenging. It's very rewarding. So I'm going to stick with it a little longer. So I ended up not going back to law school and then forever just kind of shelved that dream and put it to the side. And now, gosh, it's been a little over 15 years ago since I originally got my license, but now I own my own mortgage company. And the guy that actually got me into the business is now one of my employees. Wow. And is actually working for me here with his son as well. So we've definitely come full circle, but that plan that I had at 5 years old and then 10 and 12 and 18 years old was not how my life path went, but I couldn't imagine it any other way now.
Yeah. And I'm the same way. I changed careers at 30, and I tell the kids all the time, just because it doesn't happen right as you expect coming out of high school doesn't mean your ending can't still be great.
Exactly.
So it's all about you making the most of opportunities, because you said yourself you didn't have all the money in the world growing up, so you had to find your own way. So it's a very common tale around here. So if for anybody watching now or watching later, we have been in those same shoes in the same school district trying to figure out our path. So like I said, we got some seniors, we got all seniors here, getting close to graduation. So a lot of them have expressed interest in buying businesses and buying land up here in the Camden area. And they eventually want to be homeowners, because that's the dreams they have. They want to have the family. They want to have that whole asset per se. So why don't you tell us about the mortgage process and what they need to know coming out of high school to prepare them for that step?
Sure. So, well, one thing I'm going to tell you that doesn't have anything to do with mortgages or really high school in general is that your life is going to change over the next 6, 7, 8 years in ways that you never imagined. You will have more personal growth between the ages of 18 and 25 than possibly any other time in your life. There's so much eye-opening that goes on once you get out into the real world. So, so hold tight to those plans and those dreams that you have. Don't let go of those, but be open and accepting for any changes that may occur during that time, because what you think you want to do today may not look the same in a year or 5 years from now. Absolutely. But if you're getting ready to, if you want to own a business, if you want to own a home, if you want to own land, there's truly no better way to invest in your own local community and to see your own local community grow and prosper than investing your own funds and dollars there. And you're able to do that when you have a business there, when you own land there, when you're a homeowner there. The most important thing I can tell you is that you want to keep your credit good and in good standing. As you start turning 18, credit is going to be different. It's something that you've probably never really had to deal with much in your life up until this point. But at that point, everything that you do financially can help you and it can also hurt you. So be very cautious of any kind of financial decisions that you make in the coming years, because they can stick with you for anywhere from 7 to 10 years, depending on what happens. So you always want to pay all of your bills on time. If you do want to start a business, if you want to buy a home, if you want to buy land, you're going to want to start to save some money. For some of you, you may already have a job, you may already be working and starting to save some of that money. For some of you, you may not have ever had a job before. And so, I will say that when I made a lot of really bad financial decisions when I was younger, and some of it I probably knew better, but, I never really had anybody that taught me about savings and paying myself before I pay everybody else. But that's really important to do. Make sure that you always, no matter what kind of budget that you're, setting for yourself, whether you're in college, whether you're out living on your own, that you always have at least enough left over to be able to save and set some funds aside. There's a lot of really great programs out there where you can purchase a home with no money down, especially up in the Camden area. There's some really great programs up there to where you don't have to have a whole lot saved up, but your history of savings does play a big part in getting your loan approved. They do want to see that you are financially responsible. When it comes to buying land, that's a little bit different story. Typically, they are going to want to see some skin in the game or some money out of your own pocket to be able to do that. I know that there's some great land that's available up there. So, you're not looking at hundreds of thousands of dollars that you need to have by any means. But typically when you're buying land, they're going to want to see anywhere from 10 to 25% of the price of that land come out of your pocket initially. Now there are certain programs out there that can help you purchase land without that much money down, but you are going to be, a lot of times it's more expensive for people to try to purchase land than it is to try to purchase their own first home because of the first time programs that are available. And then when it comes to a business, that can be all over the place. There's all sorts of grants available. There's all sorts of programs available to help you finance businesses. But in order to do so, they're going to want to see a track record. You're not going to be able to just jump out of school and then jump right into owning a business that you need someone else's funds for. So to be able to get a loan or resources to be able to either grow your business or expand your business, that's something where they're going to want to look at your financial history, and they're going to want to see if you've accumulated savings, if you have some money that you have into the business yourself already. So of the three of those, honestly, I would say that buying a house is probably one of the easiest, but there's nothing, businesses can be started with $1 depending on what they are. So don't let that discourage you by any means from starting a business, because there's a ton of room, there's a ton of opportunity out there, and it really truly doesn't take a lot to start a lot of businesses. It just depends on what route you're trying to go.
Yeah, and I know in the state of Mississippi, the state law says you had to be 21 in order to sign a contract for a home.
Correct.
We don't have anybody 21. We have one that's 19. Most of them are 18,
Yeah.
17. But they are getting close to that age. So if they were wanting to do that at a young age, what would they need to do to start planning now to do that?
So one of the things, just to kind of back up just a little bit. So in Mississippi, the age of consent is considered 21 when it comes to entering into a contract. However, you can go to court and have your minority removed. Now, this isn't going to let you be 21 everywhere by any means, but for the purposes of signing a contract and purchasing a home, if your parents are willing to let you go to court to have that document signed, it can be done. Typically, it costs about $300 to $500 depending on the court. So you don't necessarily have to be 21, but without going through that extra step, you definitely do have to be. To start preparing early for, purchasing a home, one of the best things that you can do is start to build up some credit. That's one of the biggest things that the lenders are going to look at is your credit, and then also, your savings habits, and then your income as well. So, you're definitely going to want to have stable income. You're going to want to have some money saved away, because even if you were to purchase a home that was 0% down, you're still going to have closing costs and all sorts of expenses that come along with being a homeowner. So the more money you have in the bank, the better off you are. And then credit is a huge part of it. So there's a lot of programs that are designed to be able to help those that don't have a whole lot of credit built up yet. But it's not a bad idea to go ahead and start working on that as soon as you can. So even though you can't sign a contract to purchase a home, you can sign a contract to take out a loan or something. So let's say that you bank with a local credit union in your area or a local bank somewhere. A lot of borrowers that don't really have any credit yet can go in and they can get what's called a secured loan. So let's say the bank will give you a $500 loan, and you have to pay back $50 a month for a year. And that's going to account for your principal payment and then also interest on that loan. It's going to give you some credit history that'll build up on your credit report, but you're also going to be required to keep $500 in savings with that bank, so that in the event something were to happen, they have those funds to fall back on to back your loan that they're giving you. So in a sense, they're almost loaning you your own money. And yes, they would be charging a little bit of interest related to that, but it's a really great way to go ahead and get some stuff on your credit. If you go to college and you choose that route, you will start to get all kinds of credit card offers for college students.
In person, they'll be on the college campus. I'm telling you, they're relentless.
They are relentless. Do not fall for every single credit card. Typically, the rates are through the roof. That's not to say that credit cards are bad, because 30% of your credit score is based on your revolving debt. So your revolving debt is going to be things like credit cards. So it's not a bad thing to have, but you have to be responsible with them, because you could make on-time payments for 2 years, and then you can have one thing go wrong and you miss a payment 1 month, and it can set you back years on your credit history. So
yeah, and I think it's important too. We have a couple that are wanting to join the military to utilize those military credit unions, because that's giving you even more clout of the credit history, because not only are you have the proof of income with the military, using a military backed financial institution, because just for everybody watching now and later, they don't care about what you have in Cash App.
No, exactly. That's not going to go very far when it comes to getting a mortgage or buying a home. For those of you that are considering the military, first of all, I just want to say thank you for even the idea of considering it, because to me, it's one of the most noble professions in our country, and none of us will be here today without them. I work with veterans day in and day out. And one thing that I will tell you is that if you do go into the military, and if you are on base somewhere training or active duty, there are a lot of companies that will also prey on military to get you to buy a car, to get you to take out all sorts of loans. I mean, there's payday loans everywhere around the town. So I typically tend to see two different borrowers whenever I see my military borrowers. I see the ones that have been very financially responsible. They have they've accumulated a lot of wealth in their early years. They have great savings. They've got retirement accounts started, and they can be light years ahead of their peers because they got started so early. But then there's also a small section of them or segment of them that fell for all of these financing offers that were all around town. They decided that they wanted to go out and party a little bit more than their paycheck would allow them to do, or they decided that since they had this paycheck and they didn't really have a lot of expenses, instead of saving it up, they went out and got a car with a $700 car payment, so just the more like fiscally responsible that you can be, the better. But yes, there are a ton of opportunities out there when you're in the military for great banks that, to be able to work with, that will give you a lot of opportunities that you wouldn't have quite so early in life otherwise.
Yeah. And you talk about how the credit card companies, because they'll try to offer gifts, they'll try to offer tickets, they'll put you in drawings,
Yes.
T-shirts and everything, or, and some of the stores, they'll try to say, you'll get 10% off today if you sign up for the card. And that's just such a bad financial hole to fall into, because those stores stay in business because of the interest rates on their cards.
Correct. And then you think, oh, I saved 10% today, but if you make that minimum payment on that payment, you'll end up paying 30, 40, 50% more than whatever the item was that you financed originally. So yeah, I'm not going to say that it's all, a scam, because if you were to get it and you paid it off in the very first month, then it does work. But otherwise, most people are not that responsible to do that, especially early on in life.
Yeah. And that's what they're counting on. They're counting on 18-year-olds, 19-year-olds shopping with their eyes and Joneses. Now I know I got a couple in here. I know one for a fact is a master at saving money. So I think, he's actually going to ask you about buying a home with cash, because he thinks he can do it soon. I told him that'd be impressive, and I think he can do it.
Yeah.
Now, when it comes to buying a home, how important is it too, not to get ahead of yourself when you are going, don't just start, go find a realtor and start looking for houses. The most important thing first is to go see you or someone in your field to make sure you're pre-approved, because you don't want to be shopping for too much house. So talk a little bit about that, about the whole process and where you would fall into that.
Yeah. So typically what most people do is they get online, they start looking at, Realtor or Zillow or something, and they fall in love with this house and they see a payment listed there and they think, oh gosh, I can afford that payment. So that means I can afford this house. Yeah. But what they don't realize is that a lot of these calculators online are, one, they're not accurate. They may, be assuming a 20% down payment, which you do not have to purchase a home. They don't always include mortgage insurance, which can be required if you don't put 20% down. They're not going to have your taxes and insurance listed. So the numbers that you see online may not accurately reflect what your actual payment would be once you start, once you actually get a mortgage on that property. But typically people will start there. They'll think, I can afford this house. And then they'll call a real estate agent and say, hey, I want to take a look at this house. I think I might want to buy it. But what they actually need to be doing is speaking with someone that's in the mortgage industry first, to make sure that they can be pre-approved for that property, to make sure that they have the income, that they've got, one thing we look at is 2 years of history for work history. Well, you may, if you're only, let's say you had your minority removed and you were only 19 years old and you were able to buy a home, you may not have 2 years of work history yet, but your high school education can take the place of part of that 2 years of history. College education can take the place of part of that 2 years of history. So you want to make sure that your job history is stable. They're also going to look at your accumulated savings. They're going to take a look at that credit. You want to make sure that you have some credit available. Yes, there are loans available if you do not have any credit score at all, but the interest rate that you pay is going to be substantially higher than what you would pay if you did have established credit and an established credit history. So all of these things are very important. The lender is going to be able to walk through and tell you exactly what your payments, what estimated payments would look like for that property, and make sure that it's going to fit into your debt to income ratios. So that debt to income ratio is a huge factor when you're purchasing a home. Typically, you don't want your house payment to be any more than 25% of whatever your money, or sorry, whatever you make every month. So, and it's a little bit misleading, because on the mortgage side, we're going to look at what you actually make a month. We're not going to be looking at your net income and what you're bringing home a month. So if we say that you can afford 25% of what your income is, it's helpful because we're looking at your gross income and not your net income. But what we all know is that you live off of that net income. So it truthfully is sometimes it's actually higher than what, it's truthfully higher than about 25% of your net income. But you want to make sure that you can budget for that you can afford that. You can afford any other bills that come up. We never want anybody to be one air conditioner repair or one hot water heater away from losing their home. So even if you can qualify for a home, you still want to make sure that you have these expenses saved up for. But once you've met with the mortgage lender, though, they've been over your budget, your income, your assets, your history, from credit history to employment history. They're also going to look at 2 years of address history. So the fewer times that you move around within a 2-year period, the more that's going to help you as well when you're trying to purchase. So they're going to look at all of those things. Once those have all been reviewed, then they can give you a pre-approval letter that you can take to your real estate agent, and you can say, hey, I'm approved up to $100,000 for a purchase price, or whatever, the amount may be. And then the realtor can take you out to show you what all homes are available within your price range and in the area that you want to be in. But to start with the realtor, then you can, the bad part about that is that sometimes you'll get in, you might go and see a home, you love it, you start picturing yourself there, you start picturing raising a family there, only to find out that you actually are not quite ready to buy that house. So if you do it in the right order, then before you ever fall in love with the home that you may not be quite ready for, then you can know that you're ready. You can know that as soon as you walk in that first house, if that happens to be the one, that you're ready to go, move forward from there.
Yeah. And I think that's important, especially on these third-party sites like Zillow. They're not going to always be accurate on the property taxes of the county, and they're definitely not going to be accurate on the homeowner's insurance. And then
Right.
it never factors in a home inspection cost, because it's like, you don't ever get my mom started on that about if you ever buy a home without a home inspection, you're absolutely need to go to the insane asylum.
That's right.
That
is absolutely right.
Costs that have to be planned ahead. It may cost more up front, but that will save you thousands and thousands of dollars. And, people can screw you out of some money. It's really important to know all this stuff before you ever sign the contract. But I do have some questions from the students I want to get to. This person's a tough one. This is Isaac Thomas, and these are all seniors. This is Isaac Thomas, and he said, what are the tricky details about getting into and maintaining a mortgage, and is having a mortgage better than lending? Better than leasing?
I mean, I believe that yes, having a mortgage is better than leasing, in my opinion, because every single month, whether you are paying your mortgage or whether you are leasing, you are paying towards someone's mortgage. So it might as well be yours. When you're leasing, when you leave that property, the good thing about leasing is that if the refrigerator goes out, you don't have to fix it. If something happens with the roof or the front door starts leaking, you don't have to worry about that. However, you're not building up anything of value that you have, personally. So when you are paying a mortgage payment every month, you are building, you're paying principal and interest. That principal is going towards the investment that you have in that home, and the home, homes in general will appreciate over time. So even though you buy it at 100,000 today, it may be worth 120,000 in 2 or 3 years. So it's an appreciating asset that you're investing in.
Probably the only thing you can buy that would actually appreciate.
Yes, true. Very true. So it's, I definitely think when it comes to leasing or renting, leasing or owning, it's not a bad idea to get into a lease or to rent something initially when you're first getting out into the real world. One, just because it teaches you how to be on your own and to make that payment every single month. And, it does teach you a lot of responsibility, but the end of that lease or the end of that rental period that you've signed for, you're not going to have anything to show for it except the payments that you've already made. When you own your own home, you're investing in yourself, you're investing in your future and your family's future. And, there's a lot of pride that goes into home ownership, but there's also a lot of financial gain that can come from it as well.
Yeah. And like you said, when you first get out of high school, depending on your path, it's good to maybe get that apartment in your name. When you're 19, 20 years old, if your budget allows it, and if your situation allows it, because that does build that credit history. Getting the cell phone in your name, little things like that can build that credit history and show those positive tick marks to help you eventually qualify for that mortgage. Now
Absolutely.
this is Caleb Myers, and this is the one I was telling you about. I think if anybody in here could actually do this, he could pull it off. But he's asking about what if I wanted to buy a home in cash, what would be the best way to go about that?
So buying a home in cash is a lot different from buying one and using a mortgage. So if you had the cash set aside and you were able to afford to purchase that home, the most important thing that you are going to have in that process is you'll be working with an attorney, and they will be checking the title on that property to make sure that there's no outstanding liens that the seller has that have to be taken care of. They're going to be looking to see if there's any easements where someone else might own or have access to a portion of your property. But when you're, little things like that, you definitely, even though nobody is going to come and tell you that you have to have homeowners insurance on your home when you purchase it in cash, always, always, always keep homeowners insurance, because the cost of homeowners insurance is very minimal compared to anything that you would have to pay out of pocket if something were to happen. But typically, yes, if you're purchasing a home with cash, most people that are, utilizing cash, as long as the sellers are ready to move quickly, most people can close on a home in 7 to 10 days if you have the cash available. But the most important part of that process is going to be that title work that comes in from the attorney to make sure that you have good title, and that when you sign all these documents, that everything's going to be in your name, that there's going to be nobody else that's owed anything other than the sellers. Most attorneys, if you do not have a realtor that's representing you, because sometimes in cash transactions, people may not, but if you have a realtor that's representing you, then they'll write up your contract. They'll close everything according to that contract. But if you don't have a real estate agent and you're trying to buy it from someone in cash, then always have an attorney at least review or draw up that contract for you to make sure that both parties are going to be protected, because those are things that we would review for you on the mortgage side. But when it comes to, cash, you're missing a few other pieces of the puzzle that would typically be looking over those things for you. But any good real estate attorney would be able to take care of that transaction and take care of it quickly for you.
Yeah, and that's a good point too, because I know in rural communities, there's a lot of mistrust of these institutions, and it's important to, there are professionals that will represent you and can save you thousands of dollars. So I hear people say all the time, "Well, I don't want to deal with realtors." And I'm like, "Do you actually know how to draw up all that stuff?"
Exactly.
It's foolish. And then, like you said, there's no way in the world you want to do a major transaction without an attorney looking at the paperwork.
No, without a doubt.
No matter what you're buying, so it's very important to know that there are professionals out there that work in this field, and don't try to just do it on your own because your great grandparents that had in the 60s.
That's right.
A lot is, there's a lot of opportunities for people in rural communities and for minorities to make sure they're represented fairly. Jasmine Williamson, she's our Miss Velma Jackson, and she's joining the Air Force and becoming a nurse. But she had an interesting question for you. She said, "How did you build your confidence and keep a positive outlook when your plans didn't go as you originally thought?"
Oh man. Honestly, I think that all just comes from within. I think that I believe in Jesus, and I go to church every Sunday, and honestly, that's been a huge foundation of me being able to maintain positivity throughout my life. In the career that I have chosen, it is incredibly stressful, but there's a lot of things that happen that are unpredictable. And, really the biggest thing is I always believe that not only are we living our best days, but our best days are always in front of us too. And so I think that being able to have a positive attitude, with whatever you're doing, it is incredibly life-changing. If you look around you and the people that are around you are not positive and they're always pessimistic, and, then change your circle around you, because having positive people around you, the things that you read, the things that you tell yourself are so very important. But, whether it's reading inspirational books, quotes, the Bible, talking to your grandmother, talking to your parents, always maintain that positive attitude, because it will change your life if you do.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, this is Carson Day. He's our Mr. Velma Jackson. He's going to Northeast Community College to play football.
Awesome.
He asked, other than maintaining a credit score, what is the most important step I need to take if I'm planning to purchase a home?
The most important thing is to make sure that you're going to have a career path that is going to be able to document that income that you have. So for those of you that want to be self-employed, I think that that's an incredible, goal to have. One thing that you will need to know is that when you're a self-employed individual, they're going to want to see at least 2 years of having worked for yourself and filed taxes, and that you show positive income and that you're paying those taxes.
That's a big deal. If you're going to be an entrepreneur, you're going to have to pay that self-employment tax.
That's right. If you don't pay taxes, it's going to be really hard to get a mortgage. But if you choose a different path though, and you're working for someone else and you're a W-2 employee, you can literally, as soon as you get those first 2 paychecks, then you're basically, that's going to be documentable income that you could use towards purchasing your home, because they're going to be looking at your college history and things like that before. So not only is maintaining a good credit score, a big part of it, but having documentable income that they can look at and assume that it's going to continue for at least the next 3 years, and then having some money saved up too. That's going to be a big thing as well. So you don't ever want to go into home ownership not having a penny to your name, because it's going to make it really hard right off the bat.
That's tough to do. It's tough to do anything without a penny to your name.
That's correct.
This is Derek Bush, and he asked, what do you look for when you're deciding an area to buy a home or land in?
I think the biggest thing is what's going to be a good fit for you. How far is it from where you work or where you want to work? What are the school districts like? Is it a good area to raise your children in? Is it a safe place to have your family? There's a lot of people that when they're in school, or if they're, let's say you go through college and you start working and then you're getting a master's degree, it may make more sense to be in one area of town during that time of your life. But then once you start having children, you realize, I actually want to be a little bit closer to family or grandparents or in a different school district. So, where you buy a home doesn't have, your first home doesn't necessarily have to be your forever home, but, the things that impact your life, from day to day, how far is it from the grocery store? If you are going to have kids, is there stuff for your kids to do? Are there parks around,
all that affects your budget, because
absolutely.
Again, it goes back to having something you can afford, because all that's going to affect your budget in the long run, especially if you're planning on having a family.
That's right. Yeah.
Now this is Kendrick Lindsay, and he's a goofball, but he always asks this question. He said, "What's the craziest person you've ever dealt with when dealing with mortgages?"
Oh, I think I might be dealing with one right now. But honestly, I don't think that there's anybody out there that's ever been truly crazy that I have dealt with. I think one of the most difficult things that we deal with are people whose expectations of what they want to purchase are higher than what they actually can purchase.
Absolutely.
And so that's probably one of the hardest parts of my job, is trying to explain to people that even though this is what you want, this is what you can actually afford. And a lot of that comes from them just not having done a lot of research on their own. But I've definitely had some very interesting, transactions that have happened over the years. Honestly, I would say probably 99% of the people that I work with, I absolutely enjoy working with them. Some of my favorite, most memorable customers haven't necessarily been the crazy ones. They've been the ones that come to me that, don't have a whole lot of hope, that they don't think that they can purchase a home. And then once we start working through the numbers, they not only find that they can purchase a home, we get them into a home. And I continue to hear from them, year after year, on holidays, birthdays. I make really strong connections with these people just because it's so meaningful to them. Where then on the other hand, you have some people that just, it's just simple transaction and you don't hear from them much ever again. But thankfully, there's not been too many crazies that have come across my desk. But every now and then there are some that might call, 10, 15 times a day. But
well, and I know you won several awards that are well deserved, because you are so good at what you do. But we're almost out of time. And we thank you so much for joining us. But I asked you these same 2 questions last time, but I didn't get to hear it. And the first one's funny, the second one's serious. But these kids love making fun of me, and it's well deserved. And I know they get a kick out of it. So it's part of the job. I'm the butt of jokes. But we've known each other almost 30 years, and it's hard to believe it's been that long.
It is.
But I not always been the goofiest person from now, from then all the way to now, because I always tell how goofy I am. So I've always been that way.
Yes, he absolutely has. I think I said it last time and I'll say it again. This guy remembers more about high school than most of us have ever, we've already forgotten a lot of the stuff that Greg still remembers. Greg has been 100% himself all of his life. He wasn't ever afraid to show up, be goofy, stand out. And for all of you out there that are getting ready to, embrace the next phases of your life, don't be worried about what people think about you. Don't be worried about, are they going to like me? Be yourself, be true to yourself and who you are. And I promise the people that are supposed to be in your life will gravitate towards that. But that's one thing Greg's always done. And I admire him so much for it.
And I appreciate that. And, it really, I try to tell these kids all the time, people aren't going to remember all the, all the superficial stuff, but they remember the person you are. And that's the case, and our class is so close. And that's something that we always remember, even though we've all kind of gone our separate ways, we always remember we always remember people's hearts and people's attitudes. It's not always about all the superficial stuff. But before we go, you went to the same school district, grew up in the same county in Mississippi, and I know they don't want to believe this, but even us going to Madison Central, they have more here. And you've been to the school, a few years ago and saw, and you were amazed. But all the stuff they have access to here at Belma Jackson, and they think, Madison Central has everything. And I'm like, we never had this. I don't know what y'all are talking about. And you said yourself, you didn't grow up super rich, but yet, and you had a child at a young age. You were a young mother. So you were still able to create a great career for yourself in a great field, despite all the things that happened. So what did you do, and what can they do to follow in the footsteps of somebody like you in the same area?
Honestly, don't ever let your circumstances that are surrounding you right now hold you back from where you want to be. Don't ever stop, dream big, believe big things for yourself, hope and want big things for yourself, because there are so many success stories out there. Like my mom and dad, they didn't pay for me to go to college. They didn't really give me a path of which way I should go or not go. A lot of it came from, where I went to high school, and I was thankful that we got to go, I got to grow up in a great school district like Madison County. But a lot of it too was just self-drive and knowing that I wanted better for myself than I had growing up. My family, they did a lot for me. I had great parents, but I wasn't just handed everything with a silver spoon by any means. And that if I wanted something, I was going to have to get out and work hard for it. So don't ever discount the value that comes from true hard work. Another, just kind of circling back to the first question Greg asked too, don't forget, the people that are around you that meet you, they're not going to forget how you made them feel. So making people around you feel good and feel positive and having a good experience just from coming across, crossing paths with you. And don't ever think that just because you are from Belma Jackson and from Camden that you can't go out and do great things in this world, because you absolutely can. And so many success stories across our country started in a little bitty small rural area just like you're in today. So in 25 years, you could be the one that's coming back, and speaking at your own high school about all the success that you have, but you have to put in the work. It's not going to just come up and, show up on your doorstep. College and life are a lot different than high school. There's people that are making you go to school every day, and your parents are getting called if you're not there. And it's not the same once you get out into the real world. Your boss isn't going to call your mama, and the school's not going to call your grandmother and let her know that you didn't show up for school today. So if you want it, you can have it and you can achieve it. You just got to put in the hard work and go do it.
I always say, nothing in your life changes until you change it. I don't care who you are.
That's right.
But one last thing before we go, tell us how to find you for Mississippi Lending if if we have parents or them looking to get some mortgages to buy some homes.
Absolutely. So I'm on social media on pretty much everything under Michelle Dugan. My company name is MS Lending or Mississippi Lending, but you can find me online at mslending.net. I have another website that's chock full of great information and videos. It's called michellelens.com. And there's tons of information in there about being a first-time home buyer. But I'm on Facebook, I'm on Instagram, I'm everywhere. And I would be more than willing to, or happy to answer any questions, help you along the way, or even teach you more about just mortgages and the real estate industry in general, if that's something that you think you might want to do one day.
Yeah, and then next year we have our COVID bans lifted, so we'd love to have you on campus next year.
I would absolutely love to.
All right, and as always, it's such a pleasure talking to you. I'm so proud to call you. So proud to call you a classmate. It's just amazing all the things you're doing. But I will.
I agree.
You're going to deal with my mom here in the next couple of days, so good luck with that.
I am every single day.
All right, so I will talk to you soon, my friend.
Thanks, bye. Congratulations to all of you.
Thanks.